Good evening, my name is Dennis Bihus, and this is Our Money, a program on corruption investigation. Before we switch to today's investigations, I have to make an announcement. Our colleagues from Rivne, journalist investigators Fourth Power, had their office burned. On Thursday evening, an unknown person entered their office and threw a Molotov cocktail. This is the second attack on the Fourth Power within the past couple of weeks. Also, their website with the entire archive of articles was destroyed. I heard the door open downstairs, then some steps. In a couple of seconds, I heard glass shatter, and something like an explosion, a pop, as if something fell down. My son ran to me, told me that it's an arson attack. We ran to the stairs and saw dark black smoke coming. Everyone evacuated the building, tried to douse the fire. We saw a bottle here when we started dousing the flame with water. When the firefighters came, the fire source was already extinguished. You did it by yourself? Yes. Both attacks happened during an investigation of corruption at a local medical college. The journalists have found out that anything could be bought at that college, and I'm not talking about sweet buns in the dining hall. This investigation will be shown on our program in 2 weeks, and it's a great shame that I have to announce our cooperation with the regional network in these terrible circumstances. Meanwhile, our program continues to look into the lives of the subjects of the Maidan cases. Let's take a look at Viktor Kryter. Kryter is the head of the security service of Ukraine in Khmelnytskyi region. During the Maidan, he gave an order to open fire. His subordinates opened fire at the protesters who gathered under the SBU building. Later, Kryter publicly took full responsibility for the order. An investigation ensued. Now, Lyudmila Bolyanov's report on the results of the investigation and about how far the SBU official has actually carried the responsibility he took. I don't want any of that, or I will also report to the law enforcement. Who are you? Your department has... Who are you, huh? I'm Victor. Let's go have a chat. February 19, 2014. Activists gather by the SBU building in Khmelnytskyi region. They are ignored. Tension rises, and then there are gunshots. They shot from indoors with a machine gun. This is where they shot from. That's where the people stood. A lot of people. They were hit. Here, Lyudmila Bolyanova. She died of a gunshot wound to the head. A number of other people got non-fatal injuries. Alexander Khmelnytskyi got a gunshot wound to the abdomen. I felt a punch and I fell down. Then I sat up on the sidewalk and I saw a woman lying 2 to 3 meters from me. Volodymyr Haman. A bullet hit him in the side and went through. I heard the shots, brat-tat-tat, brat-tat-tat. Then it went silent. Sparks were flying, but I wasn't aware that I was shot through. Didn't get it. Just heard it hit. I understood it when Sasha suddenly told me that I was bleeding. Oleg Khmelnytsky's leg was shattered by the machine gun burst. It was amputated in a week. I couldn't get up. My leg, the bone was shattered. Nerves and blood vessels were torn, damaged.
Судини і нерви пошкоджені.
They had to drag me out with a rope.
Моргом витягали.
The machine gun fire by the SBU killed Lyudmila Bolyanova. 4 more were injured. Later that night, a young man was shot dead and 10 more activists were injured. Viktor Krytor, head of regional SBU, has publicly taken responsibility at least twice for giving the order to open fire. The first time was at this square, in a public speech. I accept full responsibility for the use of firearms. The second time was in the regional council during his resignation. I take full responsibility for the said events, for giving the order to use firearms. From the beginning, he took responsibility, and this commanded respect, at least for me, if not for the later events. At first, the case was investigated by the Military Prosecutor's Office of the Western Region. The head of the SBU in Khmelnytskyi region, Krytor, was detained straight after these events. He was served with charges for abuse of office and then taken into custody. Come April, Viktor Krytor was free to go. Tuesday, January 30th. At 6 a.m., we set off for Khmelnytskyi village near Kiev. There's a house registered to Viktor Krytor's father. We're hoping to see the Porsche Cayenne bought by Krytor for $60,000 in 2006. Eventually, we saw a new Toyota Camry registered to Krytor's son instead of the Porsche. The license plate is the same that the Porsche had. We couldn't see the driver through the tinted windows. On March 20th, 2015, the Military Prosecutor's Office of the Western Region dropped the case. They could not establish the actus reus of Krytor's actions. Krytor even remained in the SBU. They freed him from criminal liability. At first, they did it masterfully. At first, they changed the offense to negligence. Negligence is medium gravity crime. The investigation period for medium gravity is 6 months, and pretty much the last day of that period, the case was dropped. After the case was dropped, Krytor wasn't fired from his position. I mean, from the SBU agency. He was fired from leadership, but not from the SBU itself. Thursday, February 8th. We're in Khmelnytskyi again. We see the Toyota again, but no sight of the Porsche. Hours of laying in ambush have drained our patience dry. We go to the guards of the community. Oh, he can be absent for days. Okay, thanks. You'd better call him to be able to meet. But he can be away for months. Really? Krytor's charges were changed to negligence. Like if the person didn't ensure the protection of the building and civil order outside it, which led to the consequences that happened. There was this thing when the prosecutor's office itself filed an appeal to soften the pretrial restrictions. The prosecutor's office of the Western Region itself asked to put him out of jail. They stated that he was not presenting any risks. I haven't encountered cases like this in my experience. With none of my clients, even when they were the victims, have I seen something like that. I don't know.
Навіть там, де я представляла потерпілих осіб, таких випадків я реально не знаю.
Viktor Kreiter continued working in the SBU. The service sent him to the state air traffic agency Ukr. Saturday, February 10th. We're going to the house in Krushenka. Katerina, Viktor Kreiter's wife, answers the call. Hello, we're for Viktor Kreiter. We're divorced. Why did you come here? The papers say that Viktor and Katerina recently had a divorce in October last year. The wife of SBU representative in air traffic control is also the founder of Sky Handling Company, which services flights. This company has serviced the flight by which Mikhail Saakashvili was thrown out of Ukraine. He's been retired for a long time. Since 2014, when he was sent to work at, yes, he was, State Enterprise Ukr. So, this is accurate. How can a retired person work at Aeroruk? He's retired. You can ask the SBU and they'll tell you he's retired. So he didn't work at Aeroruk. He did work at Aeroruk, but that was in 2014, not now. If you're asking about the current time, he is retired. So what can he possibly comment on? Official message from the SBU. Viktor Kreiter was on service until that October last year. According to the most recent data, he had a monthly salary of $500, and now the retiree is 47 years old. On January 14, 2017, the case on the Khmelnytskyi shooting was transferred to the Prosecutor General's office. Then it turned out that the Military Prosecutor's Office of the Western region had lost key material evidence. It was discovered that 2 bullets were lost while the case was at the Military Prosecutor's Office. That's the evidence that could have been direct proof of the killer's identity. I insist that there should be criminal liability, according to already established facts and the evidence that is presented in the case. Since February 2014, Viktor Kreiter didn't make a single public speech, especially about the Khmelnytskyi events, until this day. We set off for Kiev after we met Katerina Kreiter. Earlier, we saw a white Land Cruiser in Krushenka. When we were driving to Kiev after talking to Katerina Kreiter, this car pulled us over. Turn off your cameras, come out for a minute. No, we won't. Who are you? I'm not going to beat you up. Who are you? I'm Viktor. Let's go talk. The talk was short. The man called himself Viktor Kreiter's friend, told us Kreiter will call us himself, and insisted that we shouldn't visit Kreiter's family anymore. Of course, Kreiter didn't call us himself. In 2 days, we decided to call him. You said then that you take full responsibility for giving the order to open fire. Yes, I gave the order to fire warning shots. So what's the problem? Take the statute of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the orders of the SBU, and see for yourself. What does he mean by warning shots with live ammunition, with a crowd in less than 50 meters? And it's not soil there, it's concrete and pavement. What warning shots? Where?
Там не земля, там бетон і асфальт. Тобто яка може бути попереджувальна стрільба? Куди?
But we didn't ask Kreiter only about Maidan and Khmelnytskyi. You think that an SBU employee's salary allowed to buy a Porsche Cayenne and a house in Krushenka? I don't think anything. If you think so, then God bless you. You bought it not with salary? Did you make that up? I'm asking you. You ask a question and then answer yourself. I'm just asking you to answer. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Goodbye. A shame. We had much more to discuss. For example, about 7 cars that Kreiter and his relatives have changed for the last 7 years. 2 Lexuses, Range Rover, Mercedes, Volkswagen Touareg, Porsche Cayenne, and now his son's Toyota Camry. At the same time, Kreiter's salary floated between $400 and $500. But we couldn't continue our discussion even at his official place of residence. They are registered here, but they don't live here. Do they lease it? No. They don't live here. What about grandparents, son, grandson? No, the flat just stands empty. We couldn't confirm that Viktor's property and his origin were clean, but we have confirmed the spectacular maneuver to take full responsibility when people died, avoid trial, work in peace until retirement, and comfortably live thereafter. That day, he was there. He had the situation under his control, so his people shooting at people is his responsibility indeed. You think the leadership is to blame? Of course, it's them who gave the order. It's not that someone panicked and fired. It's possible to do it in time if you serve the person with charges and then immediately stop it, because if the pretrial investigation is stopped, the time limits don't run.
Після оголошення про закінчення досудового розслідування вже строки не течуть.
An infernal figure of Yanukovych's times, Andriy Portnov. He was credited with unlimited micromanaging of the entire country's judicial system, any court ruling, doesn't matter if economical or criminal, appointment and dismissal of judges, anything in fact. After the revolution, Mr. Portnov left the country and now only seldom appears with comments in the media. But we're left with a reminder in the form of the Criminal Procedure Code, which allowed a number of corrupt officials to go home after their trials, and in the form of Portnov's relatives in judicial positions. Next, Marina Antsiforova. I think that the 16th of January laws look like small, marginal instructions compared to what was adopted by the current government. Andriy Portnov, an experienced lawyer, in the past was a member of the High Council of Justice, which appoints and dismisses judges. He led the judicial reform under Yanukovych. Later, he became his advisor on judicial matters. Thus, in the past, Portnov was a famous and influential person in the judicial community. While Andriy Portnov was a member of the High Council of Justice, a couple of his relatives became judges. Among them is Andriy Sikirsky, brother of his then-wife, and his ex-wife Irina Bolyanova. Irina Bolyanova, judge of the Kiev Oblast District Court. At the beginning of 2012, when Portnov became the head of the Judicature at the President's administration, she was appointed as a judge for 5 years. Before that, she was collecting work experience in a law firm with other relatives of Portnov. This was a long time ago. So, Leila was born in 1974. No, she was born in 1994, just as I was. Yes, and they lived for 2 more years together and then split up. They have no relationship now. Bolyanova didn't get caught up in big scandals and didn't attract public attention with unjust rulings. At first, she caught our interest as the ex-wife of the judicial overseer under Yanukovych. But Portnov himself insists that they don't maintain any relations. Okay, we'll gladly believe that. But then there's a question of how does a judge of a district court in Kiev get this kind of property? Expensive, not to say outright luxurious. The judge was appointed in January 2012. Already in November, she gets a 250 square meter apartment in the expensive Pechersk district. A high-rise with multi-level parking, its own infrastructure. It neighbors the apartments of Oleg Lishko and Kiev judges. A minimum of 220 square meters, I think. That's at least $220,000. That's without renovation, just as it is sold by the developer. So, let's take a look at the apartment of the servant of Themis at the Obolon court. So, what do we have here? Wrong one, this too, not here. That's wrong too. Oh, I see it. Looks like a non-residential unit. Look, there's no door handle, no nothing. Seems that our judge of the Obolon court lives elsewhere.
Отже, наша суддя Оболонського суду проживає ще десь, а не тут.
It's interesting to mention that a couple of stories below is Andriy Portnov's own apartment. Portnov, yes. That was when I worked there 3 years ago. Yes, Portnov Andriy. The same month, in November 2012, Portnov and Belakona's son Ihor gets a new flat. The 19-year-old law student became a happy owner of a 150 square meter apartment on Khmelnytskyi descent. Aside from student Ihor Portnov, his ex-judge aunt Olena Isayevska also lives here. Aside from relatives, local residents include Anatoly Danilenko, ex-deputy of ex-prosecutor General Yarema, and the family of Pavlo Milanin, a prosecutor of Kiev's prosecutor's office number 6. A luxury 150 square meter apartment and another luxury 150 square meter apartment. It's unlikely that you could buy that with a judge's salary. We thought someone richer could have bought it, someone like Andriy Portnov, but he denies having any relations with his ex-wife. In a comment to journalists, Portnov concisely stated that he didn't have any family relations for about 20 years. I haven't had any ties to Irina Bolyanova for a long time. Please refer to her for any information you need. We broke up in 1995. At first, the judge even agreed to talk about her declaration. Let's talk tomorrow. Do we meet at work? Sure, I'll come to the Obolon court. Okay, let's meet at 11. At 11 it is. But later she canceled the meeting and refused to explain how a novice judge could have these kinds of assets. Aside from 3 flats, the family has a house. In 2013, Irina Bolyanov's father bought a plot and a 350 square meter house near Kiev, seemingly earning the money for it at the factory. Our father was a shop foreman. Where at? In Luhansk. We're from Luhansk. So, a shop foreman? Yes, in Promstroy. Okay, and you? I worked at the factory too. Did you work in the leadership? Not in the leadership. I was a galvanizer. That's a tough job. And she added that they sold everything they had in Luhansk to buy this plot of Kiev land. Sold the 3-room flat too and managed to buy all this? Why a 3-room? I had a 4-room. Okay, 4-room. And it was enough to afford all this? Listen, we had a country house, a car. We sold it all, and of course, our children helped us. This explanation would have sufficed if we hadn't known about another 3rd flat of 110 square meters, registered in the mother's name in 2009. So, they sold a flat, a car, and a country house in Luhansk to buy this house, and they still had enough for 110 square meters in Kiev? That just doesn't add up. So, if that's Klovska Uzviz and Konovatsia Street, it's going to be $440,000 to $450,000. And the other and the total worth will be $630,000 at the least. While the newbie judge has $500,000 for real estate, she still decided to borrow a car. That's what she wrote in her declaration. The car was lent by Oksana Draganova, Belakona's friend. Keeping the car story in mind, we decided to find out who Oksana Draganova is, and to check if she is well off and just decided to lend her car, or if it's a cover-up. Turned out it is a cover-up. Until 2017, Oksana Draganova and her husband lived in a plain 17 square meter dormitory room. Not the best lifestyle for owners of a luxury car. You can see this palace, but the woman could afford that really expensive car and still live in this dormitory? How long ago did she move? It's been at least a year already. It's hard to believe that the woman decided to buy a car living in a tiny 17 square meter room while Oksana's husband worked as an ordinary driver. A couple of years before the unexpected purchase of the car, he was looking for a driver's job with a humble salary of $200. It seems that the spouses were hiding some gold in the dormitory. After a couple of failed attempts to talk to Belyakona, we decided to wait for her at the exams. Now the judge is trying to prove her right to judge without time limits. Everything is checked: her assets, experience, connection, professional background. My colleagues are here. Why are you doing this? I wanted to ask you the normal way. I'm not going to talk to you now. The qualification assessment will show whether Judge Irina Bolyanova is able to judge people better than she files her declarations, because the latter doesn't really inspire trust, considering all the costly property she owns. That's all for today. You can watch any of our episodes on YouTube, write us on social media, and if you have an interesting topic, feel free to email us. See you on TV in a week. You watched our Money with Bihus. Goodbye.
В телевізійному ефірі ми побачимось вже за тиждень. Це були наші гроші і Денис Бігус. До зустрічі.